All right, hello. Welcome back to Empowered Esquire TV. And today we have a lot on the roster. We are staying with our new format of covering some current events, some current topics together and kind of delving into them and having a Q&A about different topics together today. So, to allow everyone the chance to come into the room, I am going to play a short little video, which is on my channel from, I believe, about a month or so ago, about the Russell Simmons v. Kimora Simmons lawsuit. And as everyone kind of comes into the room during that video, once the video is finished, we will get started. So, let me go to my share screen here. Wonderful. All righty. Welcome back to Empowered Esquire TV. And here you are looking at a picture of Russell Simmons and Kimora Lee Simmons in better days. Today we are going to discuss this Russell Simmons v. Kimora Simmons lawsuit, and also we are going to have a conversation about witness credibility and whether or not Kimora Lee Simmons really stands a chance at defending herself against this lawsuit. Now, let's first get into what exactly it is that Russell Simmons is suing Kimora Lee Simmons for. Here we go. According to page 6, Russell Simmons is alleging that Kimora Lee Simmons and her husband Tim Lesner conspired to transfer $4 million of his Celsius shares stock to their accounts to help pay for Tim Lesner's legal and bail fees. For those of you who might be unaware, Tim Lesner is facing money laundering charges. Russell Simmons then goes on to state, "I am shocked and saddened to see how your side, i.e. Kimora Lee Simmons and Tim Lesner, has behaved in response to my repeated attempts to get an agreement from you to rightfully and legally reaffirm my 50% of the Celsius shares, which have been locked up with the government after being used for your husband's bail money. This, by the way, having been done under an illegal transfer of my funds that I had no knowledge of and would have never agreed to." In 2018, when Russell Simmons was being accused of rape and sexual assault, Kimora Lee Simmons made this statement: "I have known Russell for over 25 years. We were close friends, married, divorced, and have remained friends, co-parents, and partners throughout it all." She then said, "These allegations against him are nothing like the person I have known in all that time. I have known him to be caring and supporting and someone who has worked tirelessly to uplift disenfranchised communities." On May 21st, 2021, Kimora Lee Simmons gave this statement to People regarding Russell Simmons suing her and her now husband, Tim Lesner. Simmons says, "Kimora and her children are shocked by the extortive harassment coming from her ex-husband, Russell Simmons, who has decided to sue her for shares and dividends of Celsius stock in which Kimora and Tim Lesner invested millions of dollars." Kimora's legal team went on to say, "This is an ill-advised attempt by Russell to use the legal system to access funds he is in no way entitled to, and which his own legal team confirms Russell did not pay for." Kimora's statement then goes on to say, "Russell's continued aggressive behavior not only blatantly distorts the facts, but is simply a desperate PR ploy, ignoring the years of mental and emotional anguish, gaslighting, and ongoing harassment he has inflicted on Kimora." Okay, so now let's have a real conversation about this. Now, in the law, there is something called witness credibility. Well, that means that any jury or any fact finder, even if it is a judge trial or a bench trial, that person or those people are going to consider the credibility of all of the witnesses. Now, when you talk about witness credibility, you talk about the actual credibility of the person. So you talk about things like their reputation, their history, their penchant for being either, truthful or untruthful. So now that leads us to Kimora Lee Simmons, right? In 2018, Russell is a saint. In 2018, Russell Simmons is your friend and he's great and he's wonderful. And now in 2021, he's someone who has been abusing you for years. He is this horrible person who does anything for PR ploys. He is someone who's trying to take money from you and your husband that does not belong to him. As you can see, these two narratives are two very, very different pictures of who Russell Simmons is. And so that leaves you with two options. It leaves you with either between 2018 and 2021, Russell Simmons became a totally different person, or between 2018 and 2021, Kimora Lee Simmons developed some motivation for which she needed to change her opinion of Russell Simmons, right? Again, I am not going to say whether either of those are true, right? I wouldn't know. I wasn't there. But when we explore the legal basis here and what's going to happen in this lawsuit between Russell Simmons and Kimora Lee Simmons, it is essential that we talk about what she has publicly said about Russell. And undoubtedly, her credibility as a witness is going to be in jeopardy because she has always sung his praises. And it isn't until he sues her that she then says he's this horrible person. So it is going to be argued by his attorneys, more than likely, that she is biased, that she's only saying that he's abusive, that she's only saying that he's this horrible person because he's asking her to run him his money, right? So on the issue of witness credibility, Kimora Lee Simmons has a problem on her hands. Now, is there anything she can do to get out of this problem? Why, yes, there is. So there is, for those of you who are unfamiliar with domestic violence, there is a psychological condition that is called the battered women syndrome. It is possible that if Kimora Lee Simmons can establish, as she says, these years of abuse, she can argue that she was so heavily abused for so many years that she was in a place of such tremendous fear that she has never been able to speak the truth about Russell until now. Again, she would have to substantiate, perhaps by medical records, photographs, and witnesses, proof that she has been abused by Russell Simmons for years. But if she can establish that, she can overcome this quick change in her opinion of Russell Simmons, because then she can argue that what she said in 2018 was not in fact genuine, that she said what she said about Russell at that time and praised him so because she was actually in fear. So what say you? Do you think that Kimora Lee Simmons' credibility will be an issue for her in defending herself against this lawsuit? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, see you later on Empowered Esquire TV. All right, everyone. So we are getting started. I'm in the chat. Hi, everyone. Let me say hello. Hello, all. All righty. And so, like I said, that is a video that was on my channel, is still on my channel from about a month or so ago, right? So I'm going to start introducing you to other content in the beginning to allow everyone to kind of mosey on in and make their way into the live. And for those of you who are here, if you have a thought you would like to share on the Simmons lawsuit, feel free to do so in the chat. And in the meantime, I am going to go ahead and copy and paste for everyone the link to that actual video. If for some reason you have some interest or you'd like to kind of give it another listen, right? So let me take a second and do that. Let's see here. Ba, 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 ba. All right, I'm coming over to the chat. Oh, one moment. Alrighty. Now pasting the link to that video in the chat. And as you can see, new method, I now have a handkerchief of sorts as opposed to my usual paper towel, but I will be dabbing. As you know, it's summertime and there are 3 million lights on me when I do these lives, right? All right, so with that intro, we are going to dive into our list of topics for today. So if you've seen the title, you know that our headliner for today is the Cardi B and Tasha K defamation lawsuit. So we are going to have a real conversation about what defamation is, how you could prove that someone has defamed you, what's going on in the Tasha K Cardi B case, right? And also I want to give you guys some tidbits on how you can look up cases if you do not want to have to incur expenses through a Pacer account. So for those of you who are unfamiliar, if you are looking up a federal court case, you have to use a system called Pacer. But here's the thing. Certain pages, certain documents, and certain searches on Pacer will actually cost you, right? It's not much, something like, I think, 10 cents per page, but it does cost you, right? So I'm going to share with you a tool you can use if you do not want to incur any expenses at all, right? You're curious about something, it's not that big of a deal, okay? We'll get into that. So we're going to dive right into Tasha K and Cardi B. We're going to listen to, well, no, strike that from the record. We're going to take a look at the court case and some of the court documents. So let me share my screen and let's hop right on in. All right, so here we are. So remember I said that we would talk about tools you could use that didn't have you incur any, that don't require that you incur any expenses at all. So this is one of those tools. This is courtlistener.com, okay? So here you see Almanzar v. Kibe. For those of you who are unfamiliar with Cardi B's actual name, it is, let me get to the first name here. It is, I hope you guys are not hearing this foolishness going on outside. This person just drove by with a car that's like a nightclub inside. Anyway, okay. So Cardi B's actual name is Belcalis Marlenis Almanzar. So here you see her actual last name, right? You don't see Cardi B v. Kibe, which again, if you're unfamiliar with Tasha K, I honestly don't imagine you are with all this that's going on. But if you are, she is a celebrity journalist, blogger / vlogger, right? Think social media's version of Wendy Williams, right? And then you have Tasha K. And her actual name is Latasha Kibe, okay? So here on courtlistener.com, right, you see Almanzar v. Kibe. So you know that this case was initially filed by Cardi B, right? So even if at some point Tasha K filed a counterclaim, which we know she did, this matter was initiated by Cardi B. We also see the court of origination. What does that mean? That means the court that this case was filed in. The District Court of the Northern District of Georgia. What does that tell us? Well, that tells us that this is a federal lawsuit, not a state lawsuit, okay? So here we have the judiciary that it was assigned to. We see this case was assigned to William M. Ray II. We see the complaint was filed on March 21st, 2019. We see that the most recent filing in this case was July 13th, 2021. And we see that the initial cause of action was libel, assault, and slander, okay? And you see diversity here. So the reason why the word diversity is there is because remember, we talked about, if you're not new, of course, we've talked about how you end up in federal court. And remember, we spoke about there being certain triggers that will kind of guarantee that you actually belong in federal court. One of those things is diversity. So parties that are in different states, similar to how committing crimes in different states will trigger a federal prosecution. Well, having causes of action with parties in different states can trigger a federal lawsuit. So here you have it, diversity, okay? The plaintiff has made a jury demand, which means Cardi B has requested that she actually have a jury rule on her case, right? And a jury demand just means that you're not requesting a bench trial. It doesn't mean that you will never file a motion for summary judgment. It doesn't mean any of that. It just means that you are stating a preference as one of the parties that if you go to trial, you have a jury trial and not a bench trial or a trial in which a judge is making all of the factual rulings, okay? All right, so now it goes in order. So we see when the complaint was filed. We see when the summons was issued, right? And now you see some of these you would have to pay for, right? But not all of them, right? Now check this out. The first answer that Tasha K filed, you could view for free. And you can also view for free the first amended complaint by Cardi B, as well as the answer to the amended complaint. Okay, so let's check that out. Let's go to the first amended complaint that was filed by Cardi B. Now I'm going to stop screen sharing just for a moment, just to answer any questions that you all may have, because I know that once we get started and I get into it, I'm going to get kind of, taken away. All righty, so if you have any questions thus far, feel free to put them in the chat. If not, I am going to just continue on with the first amended complaint that was filed by Cardi B against Tasha K in this matter. So I'll take a sip of water while I wait. I'm considering getting a little digital countdown with like 10 seconds, 5 to 10 seconds or something, that we can use in these moments when I'm allowing everyone to ask questions. All right, so Crime Spotter has a question. Crime Spotter wants to know, what's the case really about? Slander? Well, Cardi's initial allegations here are, as we know, defamation. I think she also listed slander, right? Defamation, libel per se, and slander per se. So those are the initial accusations. So as far as what the case is really about, well, technically you could say that it's about all of the accusations that are being made. You don't have to have a single accusation that is the forerunner. You can make several different accusations, and they are each all as important as the other. Crime Spotter thinks I should have a digital countdown. I'm going to get a digital, like 5 to 10 second-ish countdown. So when I start soliciting questions, like, anyone have any questions? Any questions? I can just play our little countdown. All right, so no further questions. I feel like I'm in court whenever I say that. No further questions, Your Honor. Oh, wait. Stephanie Collins has a question. Stephanie would like to know, I'm really curious what Cardi B is claiming the defamatory statements were. Does she enumerate them? Well, Stephanie, today is your lucky day. We are going to dive into the actual complaint. So we will see if Cardi B actually enumerates and states what Tasha K said about her specifically that she is saying was defamatory. Okay. So let's get into it. All right, here we are. So here we are, Cardi B's real name, right? Her actual name. And then Latasha Kibe. And we have some AKAs. And guess what? We also have Star Marie Ebony Jones listed as a defendant in this complaint. For those of you who are wondering why that is because part of what Cardi B is alleging in this complaint was said that was defamatory, involved an interview that Tasha K did with this woman named Star Marie. Okay. So let's get into it. We see our plaintiffs and our defendants. Nature of the case. Again, that word diversity, right? This is a diversity action asserting Georgia state law claims for slander per se, slander, libel per se, and defamation as a result of defendants' publication of slanderous and defamatory statements regarding plaintiff that are false, harmful, and offensive to plaintiff, as well as an invasion of privacy, false light, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Wow. Quite a bit of legal mumbo jumbo, right? So let's break that down. So, teaching moment. Whenever you see per se, so when you see slander per se, libel per se, defamation per se, what that means is that there are less elements that need to be proved or proven, proved. We all have those moments, right? Less elements that require proof. That's the safe option, so we'll go with that. What that means is there are less elements that require proof. So, for example, defamation per se requires a lower bar of proof than simply defamation. And in many states, it is considered defamation per se when you are saying something that could really damage someone's life, i.e., if you are saying something that challenges their livelihood, right? Their career, their ability to make money and survive. You would have less elements of proof there because it's defamation per se. So if the state of Georgia works the way that many other states do, slander per se is going to be similar. It has less elements of proof than your average slander accusation, okay? Then when you see the ice cream man is outside, oh my goodness. Okay, so then when, just show you how much of a fat kid I am that I'm totally like, okay, so when you see invasion of privacy, right, you know that you're dealing with the allegation that someone has revealed information that is supposed to be some level of sensitive, right, some level of private. Then you see false light. So false light really means when someone represents something about anything or anyone else that is a misrepresentation or a lie. Right? That's really false light. And a lot of times you will see defendants, former defendants, I should say, bringing false light lawsuits when they have been accused of something publicly that they did not actually do, right? And they say, this is the tort of false light. This accusation damaged my reputation, but it was proven that it's proven. But it was proven that I actually did not do anything. I actually did not commit this crime and it already ruined my life. I was being portrayed in a false light, okay? And then intentional infliction of emotional distress. Well, that is exactly how it sounds. That is when someone causes another person psychological, mental, emotional harm, and they meant to do that. They meant to cause that harm, okay? So that is the nature of the case. You see who the parties are, which again speaks to the diversity, right? You see that Cardi B is a citizen and resident of the state of New York. You see that Tasha is a citizen and resident of the state of Georgia. They go into jurisdiction and venue, which we have discussed many times on this channel. Remember, your jurisdiction for your federal courts requires, again, that you have some federal trigger, right? So that has to be addressed in this portion of the complaint, and it is. Okay, now we get into some of the factual background. So honestly, this is kind of par the course, right? And we know this. This is saying that Cardi B is a musician. Okay, we get it. We get it. Cardi B goes into some of her other efforts outside of music. Interesting. She then goes into some things about Star Marie Jones. And then she goes into some factual things about Tasha K having a celebrity gossip site, as she so calls it. Now, here is where we get into the important stuff. So, upon information and belief, over the past year, Kibe has targeted the plaintiff and began making degrading statements regarding the plaintiff, okay? So Cardi B is prefacing, boy, me and words are really not getting along today, hey? So Cardi B is prefacing that Tasha K, made some statements about her that were defamatory. Okay. She then goes on to say that while plaintiff was pregnant on or around April 13th, 2018, Kibe published a video where Kibe stated that as a result of plaintiff's actions, plaintiff's then unborn child may have intellectual disabilities. Okay, so she is getting into the answer to Stephanie's question. She is getting into actual statements that were made. For those of you who are unfamiliar with this statement, it is believed, allegedly, that Tasha K made a video around this time where she kind of stated or insinuated that Cardi B had some type of STI and that STI could cause her child to have birth issues. She then goes on to accuse Tasha K of being obsessed with her, right? You can see that for yourself. See that there. She does say that Tasha K allegedly made some more defamatory statements, but we don't see any specific statements just yet. So we saw a statement earlier. Let's see if we can see any more. Okay, more allegations that there were defamatory statements being made. We don't see any actual statements yet. Okay, so now we get into the video that Tasha K posted where she was kind of interviewing Star Marie Jones, okay? So here we go, paragraph 33. In the Jones video, Jones also made the false, malicious, and defamatory statement that plaintiff took Molly and cocaine. Specifically, she stated, the more Molly pills she would be taking, the more cocaine she would be taking. In the Jones video, Jones also falsely stated that plaintiff was engaging in prostitution. Specifically, she stated, referring to plaintiff, I guess we were supposed to have blank exchange blank for money. Shortly after Jones released the Jones video on or around September 13, 2018, Jones also published written comments on her Instagram account to third parties. Okay? Again, she actually has the specific statement here that she's alleging that Star Marie Jones said about her. And she's alleging that Star Marie Jones said, as you can see here, just a Grammy-nominated prostitute running around spreading her herpes. I hesitated on saying that word, but I said it. Okay. So we have some actual statements made by Star Marie Jones. We technically also have a statement made by Tasha K, but we don't have much description as far as exactly what statements were made, because I highly doubt that it's just these two statements that make up the entirety of this case, right? Now they're getting into how many views these videos garnered, right? Which, as we've discussed in the past, when someone has harmed you and you are suing them, it helps your case to establish how they've benefited from your harm, right? That's something you can use when you proceed into damages, okay? Unjust enrichment is the legal term. Another teaching moment. So they continue to say that more videos came out. Oh, here is another statement. So they discuss a video they're calling the 919 video, which they say allegedly contains the false, malicious, and defamatory statement that plaintiff also had herpes outbreaks on her mouth in the past. Then they say that Tasha K said to Star Marie Jones, so you were living with her at the time and she had herpes outbreaks on her mouth? Jones, yes. Okay, so we have yet another statement that was made. So they are getting into the statements here. All right, we're now on page 10. Let's see if we see any other statements. Not seeing any other statements just yet. Let's continue to browse. We are now on page 11 of the complaint. We're looking specifically for statements that were made. Okay, not seeing any others. Not seeing the ice cream man is still directly outside. What a distraction. I mean, really, I'm proving to be very strong in this moment. Still no particular statements, right? They're talking about something that happened in a phone call, but for the record and for another teaching moment, statements made in a private phone call are really not going to hold up very well in court as defamation. Part of what you'd want to prove if you're alleging defamation is that something was said about you publicly, right? Something that is false about you was put out to the world, not something that one person mentioned to another person in a phone call. Okay, I don't see any other further statements thus far. We now get into the slander per se argument, right? Where she's starting to talk about what her slander per se claim is, but it's really a repetition of the statements that we already saw. Let's see. Let's see if we can kind of skim through some of this. No slander. It talks about the fact that she was humiliated and embarrassed, allegedly. I don't see any other specific statements here. Okay, now we're getting into what she's requesting. A prayer for relief is just what the plaintiff is requesting from defendant, or at least requesting that the court order defendant to do, right? Okay, so that was the gist of her complaint as far as the meat and potatoes of her complaint, with her allegations and things of that nature. And quite frankly, we saw maybe 4 or 5 actual statements, right? But what we did see, though, is a lot of replication of the statements. So not so much a lot of statements being made, right? Really only 4 or 5 statements being made. But we see those 4 or 5 statements being replicated and replicated and replicated and produced and uploaded to YouTube and uploaded to YouTube. And that, everyone, is where you see Cardi B building her case for defamation. So although, as I said, you may not see a mass of statements, you see this constant replication of it, which is why her attorney made sure to list every video that was uploaded, every tweet, every Instagram post, because that constant replication adds to her argument for defamation. So let me hop on in the chat because I see there's a lot going on in here. And I'm going to do my shout outs. Hi to Take R. Kelly. Hi, I am a queen, Newton. I love that. I am a queen. I love that. People have unique names on here. So I love when I see names like that. Hey, Crime Spotter. Hi, Stephanie Collins. Hi, Mom Life Love. Let's see who else is in here. Hey, KKC. Peace. How are ya? Who else? Hi, Bodacious Lady. Wow, another name that I like. Alrighty, so let me get into some questions because I believe that I saw, okay, here we go. So Stephanie Collins has another question. She says, this brings up an interesting question. Star Marie is named personally. However, what do you think about Cardi B's theory that Tasha K is liable for Star Marie's statements on her platform? Very, very interesting. So it's an interesting argument to make, right? So in essence, let's say that Gayle King brought Stephanie Collins onto her show. And Stephanie Collins, of course, this is all hypothetical, Stephanie, nothing but love. And Stephanie Collins just loses it. She just starts saying a lot of really radical, not so kind things about certain groups of people, right? Should Gayle King and could Gayle King be responsible for what Stephanie Collins said? Really? In essence, no. Now, if for some reason someone who wanted to sue Stephanie Collins could prove that Gayle King either had some reason to believe that Stephanie Collins would make these statements, that Gayle King had some agreement with Stephanie Collins, then yes, now we're entering enough proof for you to try to hold Gayle King responsible. But if someone just comes onto your platform as a guest and they just start to speak their mind, you're not just carte blanche responsible for whatever it is they say. Now, despite that, you will see that a lot of platform hosts and a lot of channels, they give you disclaimers when they have guests. They will say, hey, this person's opinion is not necessarily the opinion of this channel, et cetera, et cetera. And they do that just as an extra protection. But really, if you were to try to have a case against someone, you need to really prove that that person had some inkling that their guest was going to say these defamatory, hateful things. Okay. Let's see. Scrolling slowly so as to not miss any questions. All righty. I don't think there are any other questions per se, I believe. Okay. All righty. So I'm going to dive into now the actual elements of defamation. Okay. So we know for the most part what Cardi B has alleged. Oh, wait, before we do that, we need to look at Tasha's answer and counterclaim, don't we? So first, everyone, here is the link. Remember, courtlistener.com. If you just want to browse and you don't even want to incur 10, 20, 30 cents on Pacer, Court Listener is free. Okay? So let's look at Tasha K's answer to Cardi B's amended complaint, shall we? I'm going to share my screen again. I'm thinking that I may just do full screen if I wasn't already. I really, you guys, truth be told, I can't remember what version I was using. All right, here we go. So now, Latasha Kibe's answer to the amended complaint. Let's check it out. Here we go. All right, so defendant Kibe's answer and affirmative defenses. So, teaching moment. A plaintiff files a complaint. A defendant then answers that complaint with a document that is called an answer. Very often when a defendant answers, they will also allege affirmative defenses to whatever it is they're being accused of doing. Now, these elements, I shouldn't say elements, these arguments are called affirmative defenses because they have certain levels of proof that come with them. And usually, a defendant has no burden of proof, okay? So to walk that back a bit, a plaintiff has the burden of proof in whatever allegation they make in their complaint. A defendant has no burden of proof. So when you see a defendant alleging affirmative defenses, they're called affirmative defenses because now this defendant actually has some element of proof that he or she has to meet to actually prove these affirmative defenses. Okay? Latasha Kibe, all right? So she gets into her first defense where she just says, Cardi B fails to state a claim, right? That's a basic defense where she's just saying she fails to actually state something that I have done, which proves that I somehow am liable, okay? Then her second defense, she says, plaintiff's amended complaint fails to plead each essential element for a viable claim of slander per se. So what is she saying here? Well, here she's saying, well, Cardi B hasn't added or provided enough factual proof to prove each element of slander. Okay. Another par of the course response. Then she goes into her third defense. She says plaintiff's amended complaint fails to plead each essential element for slander. Okay, so first slander per se, then slander. Okay. Fourth defense. Plaintiff's amended complaint fails to plead each essential element for a viable claim of libel per se. Okay, so you can imagine that for each cause of action that Cardi B raised, Tasha K's response is, you didn't give enough proof. Okay. All right, fifth defense is more of the same. Sixth defense, seventh defense, eighth defense, ninth defense, and 10th defense. We're trying to get towards the affirmative defenses, okay? All right, jurisdiction and venue. We don't need to go through all of that. We already know what the jurisdiction and venue arguments are, right? But I want to point something out for you. Notice that you see in the response here, you see Ms. Kibe admits paragraph 17. Ms. Kibe denies paragraph 27. That is the structure of an answer. An answer has to actually admit or deny the allegations in the complaint. So that is what you see her doing here. Okay, I'm actually going to search for affirmative and hope that she actually lists her affirmative defenses and not just some random, let's see here. Oh, interesting. All right, so she doesn't really give us an explanation for her affirmative defenses. I mean, I would have liked to have seen more of an enumeration of her affirmative defenses than is provided here. But okay, that was her attorney's strategic choice. Okay, so we've just gone through the answer of Tasha K to Cardi B's amended complaint. The gist of her answer is that Cardi B has not met her burden of proof. That's the gist of her answer, right? And then she has some affirmative defenses that aren't necessarily enumerated therein. Okay, so we have a question from Stephanie Collins. She says, are you saying that it's not terribly accurate that Tasha K has to prove she didn't say these things or that they aren't slander? Very good question, Stephanie. So as a general rule, the plaintiff has the burden of proof. Tasha K, in essence, does not have to prove anything, right? But remember, she has affirmative defenses. So she does have to prove the elements of her affirmative defenses. But as far as a general burden of proof, she has no general burden of proof because she's a defendant. It's the same reason that in criminal prosecutions, you'll see that the defense attorney will always harp on, my client doesn't have to be here. We don't have to, because you don't. As defense, you do not have a burden of proof. And for the very common sense reason that you did not bring this cause of action. So Tasha K's only burden of proof pertains to her affirmative defenses. Now, I imagine that in her affirmative defenses, she will be seeking to prove that the things that she said are true to a certain extent, right? So let's get into what is required for a defamation claim and what Tasha K could be arguing currently to try to defeat this lawsuit, shall we? Hello to Hello Mellow. Let me take a sip of water from my ridiculously large cup. Refreshing. Not as refreshing as ice cream, but take what I can get, right? All right, so I'm going to share my screen. And we are going to one of our little free legal tools that I'm always sharing with you, right? The Legal Information Institute, powered by Cornell Law School, okay? So defamation. Defamation is a statement that injures a third party's reputation. The tort of defamation includes both libel, which for those of you who don't know, libel is a written statement, and slander, spoken statements. Okay, so pause. So Tasha K is facing accusations of both libel and slander, right? Why? Well, she also wrote things allegedly on Instagram and Twitter, right? And she also allegedly said things on YouTube and where's the other Instagram and things like that. So she has allegedly both written and spoken statements regarding Cardi B, okay? Now, to prove prima facie defamation, a plaintiff must show 4 things. 1, a false statement purporting to be fact. 2, publication or communication of that statement to a third person. 3, fault amounting to at least negligent, remember me and the words today, all the words, to at least negligence. And 4, damages or some harm caused to the person or entity who is the subject of the statement. So that is in general, right? It varies from state to state, but this is a general idea. Let's delve into that when we're thinking about Cardi B and Tasha K. So first, Cardi B has to prove that the things that Tasha K said about her are in fact not true. So thus far, we've heard an allegation that Cardi B had an STI, and we've also heard an allegation that she may have been prostituting herself, right? So Cardi B has to prove that those statements were false. How will she do that? I guess we'll see, okay? Second, publication or communication of that statement to a third person. So remember we spoke about phone calls versus publication via YouTube. Technically, you could try to file a lawsuit based upon a phone call, but realistically, a publication such as YouTube or Instagram or Twitter is more effective proof of you disseminating a false statement. In this instance, we do have Tasha K disseminating allegedly false statements via YouTube and Instagram and things like that. Third, fault amounting to at least negligence. Okay, so what that means is this person had to have some level of intent. And when you see at least negligence, what that means for Tasha K is she has to have at least known that these statements could cause some harm and that they could be false. So that's negligence. When you know that reasonably something could happen, not necessarily that you mean for it to happen. And then for damages, Cardi B has to show that somehow these statements harmed her, right? Which, believe you me, that it will actually be a challenge. And here's why. So Cardi B, similar to her spouse Offset, is a public figure, everyone. And when you're talking about defamation and public figures, you're in a totally different ballgame. It is like the difference between Little League and the MLB, right? A public figure is going to have to really, really, really prove defamation because the court views public figures as open to more scrutiny, open to more speculation, open to more conversation than your everyday person. So that's the first thing when we're talking about Tasha K, right? Now, here's the second thing when we're talking about Tasha K and Cardi B. The second thing is that Tasha K is alleging that some of the statements that were made, particularly regarding the STI and things like that, she's alleging that that information was received from Star Marie or from some other source. So then it becomes important that Tasha K is saying she's a journalist, right? Because now she's not saying that she made up these statements. She's saying, I received this statement from somebody who I believe to be credible. And that person communicated to me that these statements were true. So now you have yet another interesting element because Tasha K is not alleging to have originated these statements. She is alleging to have received this information from someone else who gave her the impression that this information was allegedly true. So as a public figure, Cardi B is facing a bit of a hill to climb, right? She has to prove that she can overcome that assumption that public figures generate more talk, and that's okay. I think she'll really have to go the extra mile to prove that Tasha K had some reason to know that the statements she made allegedly were not true. And how she will prove that? I guess we will have to see. So we are at 5:49 and we have some other topics we want to get to. So I'm going to open the floor for Cardi B and Tasha K questions. And if there are none, we are going to keep it pushing. Okay, so I'll give you all a few seconds while I say hello. Hey, Pastor Lee. Hi, Michael Smith. Hi, the Honorable Rev Fat Boy at God is Good Ministries. How are you doing today, Reverend? Were you in church today, Rev? What was the sermon today? Any questions on Cardi B v Tasha K in the chat? And in the meantime, let's take a poll. What do you guys think about this case? If you think Cardi is going to win this case, put Cardi in the chat. If you think that Tasha K will actually be able to defend herself and Cardi will not win this case, put Tasha in the chat. So Cardi in the chat, if you think Cardi is going to take this home and Tasha K is really going to have to get in that bag and pay Cardi. Or if Tasha in the chat, if you think that she'll be able to defend herself and this won't fly. Bodacious Lady says she thinks that Tasha went too far. Well, I have to say, Bodacious, there are quite a few people that think that Tasha K went too far. But in the age of the internet, there are so many people doing so many very, very interesting things, right? Karen Johnson thinks Cardi is going to win. Let me see your transcript. Thinks Cardi is going to win. The Reverend thinks that Cardi is going to win. So, okay. So for the most part, the chat, which you guys, as I said, I am just blessed and honored to have a very, very well-read and intelligent audience on my channel. So, if you guys think Cardi is going to win this, you guys might be saying something here. So Stephanie would like to know, how will it affect Cardi's claim that the prostitute allegation is defamatory, or defamatory, however you want to say that word, when she said it herself? Oh, Stephanie Collins, always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. So it is definitely going to hurt Cardi B's case if Tasha K can provide footage of Cardi B admitting to any portion of what she is saying Tasha K has said about her that was defamatory. Because remember, what Cardi is saying is that the statements that were made by Tasha K, allegedly, were false. So if Tasha K can provide proof that Cardi B was admitting that these statements are true, then that's it. The whole case falls apart after that, right? That's it. Okay, I don't see any other questions. I do see an interesting statement. So let me see. Your transcript says Olga, who is Tasha K's lawyer, has been losing a lot of her cases. I do want to take a moment to say this. Losing a lot of her cases does not necessarily mean she's not a good attorney. She could be taking on cases that are extremely challenging and thereby losing them because they are extremely challenging. You know, so you never know. Okay. So we are wrapping up our Cardi B Tasha K convo. Oh my goodness, this took an hour. Wow. Were we being really, really ambitious in our topic list today? Because we're almost at 6 already. You know what? This is going to be fun. Let's take a poll. If you want me to continue and talk about some of the other topics, which we won't get to all of them, maybe, supposedly, right? Or if you would like to just round out 7 more minutes on Tasha K and Cardi B and then come back with some of these other topics later on in the week, right? I will let you all decide. I mean, look at that. Look at how much I care about you that I'm saying I'd give you another day in the week. So let me know in the chat. Do you want to talk for another 6 minutes about Tasha K and Cardi B? Or do you want to move on to some other topics and I stick around until, an hour and a half or so? Okay, so give me a 1 in the chat if you want to just have 6 more minutes of convo about Tasha K and Cardi B. And then we can maybe look at some motions and some orders, right? Or give me a 2 in the chat if you want to move on to something else and I hang out with you for an extra half an hour, okay? Hello to Diva Divine Light. How are you? It is an honor to have you here. Hello, darling. So yes, everyone, a 1 in the chat if you want to continue the Tasha K Cardi B conversation. A 2 in the chat if you want to move on to some of our other topics, and I'll stick around for another half an hour. Okay, I see we have a 2 from Stephanie Collins. So Stephanie Collins has entered her vote. Anyone else? Well, it should be everyone else. I mean, you're here, so you must have some preference. All right, so we have a 1 from Karen Johnson. Hi, Karen Johnson, by the way. Okay, you guys, we're tied. Everybody else, you guys gotta, let us know. As of right now, we have no plan for moving forward. So it is a 1 if you want to continue talking about Tasha K and Cardi B, or 2 if you want to move on to some of our other topics, and I will stay for an extra half an hour. Okay, so we have another 1. So that is continue talking about Tasha K and Cardi B. It looks like that's the winner, right? Okay, that's the winner. Let me see your transcript. Says, did I see her question? Let's see. Oh, let me see your transcript. Says, can you do E. Dewey Smith versus Larry Reed? I feel like I've seen the name Larry Reed, but I'm not super familiar with him. But you know what? I'm going to send myself. So I don't know how you guys send yourself little messages and notes, but I text myself from my laptop to send myself little notes. It's funny. So let me put E. Dewey Smith versus Larry Reed. I'll put it on my list. Smith v. Larry Reed. All right, so everyone voted that we're going to just keep chatting about Tasha K and Cardi B, and I'll come back, you know, at some point. You guys tend to like midweek, right? Crime Spotter, you cannot vote. Listen, Crime Spotter tries to make his own rules. You can't vote twice. You can't vote twice. Okay. All right, so we have 4 more minutes. Let's take a look at court listener and see what other juicy stuff. Oh, the motion to dismiss the counterclaims of defendant. This is the motion that was just granted, you guys. So if you've missed it, there was a motion to dismiss Tasha K's counterclaims against Cardi, and the judge did dismiss Tasha K's counterclaims. So if you're wondering, what are counterclaims? Allow me. A plaintiff files the original claims, right? The complaint. And then a defendant can file counterclaims. A defendant can counter sue the plaintiff. So what happened here was that Cardi originally sued Tasha K alleging libel, slander, defamation. And then Tasha K turned around and countersued, right? Also alleging defamation amongst some other things. She also, I believe, alleged harassment, stating that Cardi was having other people threaten her, allegedly. Okay. Hi to Erica Youngblood. There is a true crime video that I have coming up on my channel in regards to a gentleman named Philip. That takes a while. True crime videos are not a boom, boom situation, and they're not like a live either. They require that I do a lot of work and a lot of editing, and I am in the process. All right. Okay, so let's dive into these counterclaims, shall we? Let's go share screen. All right, motion to dismiss counterclaims. Let's check it out. Actually, let's get, you know what? Let's start here. I was going to go straight to the memorandum of law, but we'll start here. So you see here, they have the motion to dismiss, and then they have the memorandum of law. So if you're wondering what's the difference, the motion will actually give the argument, right? The motion will say, this is what we are arguing should happen. The memorandum of law will provide all of the law that supports whatever it is that party is asking for the court to do, okay? Let's check this out first. Plaintiff's motion to dismiss the counterclaims of defendant Latasha Kebe. All right. Oh, well, they didn't actually. So here's another interesting moment for us to have. Every attorney is different when it comes to the way they format. So some attorneys would actually have some level of wherefore, some level of argument. Mind you, there's no right or wrong with this. But as I said, some attorneys would have had some level of preface and argument in this motion portion. But it looks like that is not the way of this attorney. It looks like this attorney, her way, and I believe it's a woman, right? Sarah, yes. Her way and his way is to put all of that argument into the memorandum of law, which is fine. As I said, there's no right or wrong. And that's something I really want us to realize when we're talking about these cases. There is so much autonomy in the law, and every attorney practices differently. Okay, so memorandum of law. Here we go. Memorandum of law in support of their motion to dismiss Tasha K's claims. Preface. So here they're just kind of talking about, you know, some facts, some alleged facts, and some things that have happened thus far. Okay, then they get into the legal standard of a motion to dismiss, but you know what we're interested in is this portion. Here we go. So first, they argue Kebe has failed to state a claim for slander per se. Kebe's allegations, most of which are pled upon information and belief, are that plaintiff, 1, referred to Kebe as a, quote, dumb A.B. and a garden tool. 2, threatened Kebe with litigation to take all her F bread being used as slang for money. 3, referred to Kebe as this blogger lady. And 4, stated that Kebe makes up false statements about plaintiff stalks plaintiff and harasses plaintiff's friends, and 5 said that Kibe uses plaintiff's name for clickbait. So you all, just on the face of this statement, of these statements that were used to allegedly fulfill the burden of proof in Tasha K's counterclaim, I'm sure you can see that these statements are not necessarily slander, right? In my humble opinion, because calling someone dumb isn't necessarily considered to be slander in many, many jurisdictions. And the reason why is because that is really an opinion, right? It's similar to saying she has pretty hair or she has hair that I don't like. It's more so an opinion, okay? And then threatening her is more so threatening her. So I'll take all your effing bread. That's more so a threat and not necessarily slander, right? Now, there is something that seems slander-esque to calling her site clickbait, particularly when we know that Tasha K allegedly makes a living from her YouTube, right? So if Cardi B did allegedly say that Tasha K's site is full of clickbait, you know, there was some leverage there. That maybe could have been slander per se, because that could hurt her income. Okay. All right. They dive into, I guess, some more reasons why those statements are not slander per se. They then say that her slander claim as a matter of law fails to allege any actionable statements by plaintiff. Okay. And they go on to list the law that supports their motion. They go some more into what Tasha K alleged that Cardi B said about her. And again, it's more of the same. This blogger lady, this garden tool, this dumb AB, right? Again, more of the same. And as we discussed, calling someone a garden tool and calling them dumb could really be considered to be your opinion and not necessarily any type of slander or libel. And it gets very, very sticky when you talk about these types of words, because someone can always try to say, hey, First Amendment, I have an opinion about you, and you can't say that I'm slandering you because I have an opinion. Okay. Okay, and then more repetition of the same alleged statements. So really, in their argument to dismiss these counterclaims, you just have Cardi B's attorneys saying these statements do not rise to the level of slander or defamation or anything in the like. They then talk about Tasha K's damages, right? And they pretty much say that, hey, in our opinion, we do not believe that Tasha K has really alleged anything that proves that she was damaged. There were any damages that flowed from Cardi B's alleged action towards her. And there's an interesting element here to discuss, because Tasha K allegedly makes, as we've said, a living from her channel, right? So when you think about how much traffic Tasha K's channel probably garnered from this whole Cardi B back and forth, you can see that it would be difficult for her to prove that she was damaged by this, right? Because the numbers may make it look as though she may have actually been enriched by this. Okay. An interesting thought. And more of the same, more legalese, more case law that I'm sure you all are really not too, absolutely eager to dive into. But if for some reason you are, here is the link. You can read the case law, okay? So we are at 6:05. I am going to see if there were any other questions that we can round up. And I also wanted to mention to you guys, I was featured on a podcast recently. It's called The Unpoppin' Show, the Unpopular Opinion Show. So I want to drop the link to that show in the chat. It was really, really cool. It was an honor to be on the podcast. And we just talked about some current events and things like that. Okay. So Diva Divine Light wants to know, what is a decorum order? So Diva Divine Light, a decorum order is usually when a judge issues an order that says, this is how you should conduct yourselves, either in my court or just in general. So let's say, for example, Cardi B came into court and said, again, this is hypothetical. Cardi B came into court and said, Judge Diva Divine Light, Tasha K is posting about me every single day. And I believe that while we are in litigation, she should not be permitted to post about me. She should not be permitted to discuss this at all. Then Judge Divine Light may say, you know what? I agree with Cardi B. I'm going to issue a decorum order. And the decorum order is going to say that both parties are to refrain from speaking about each other at all while this case is pending. And you know what? I'm also going to add something else, Cardi B. I'm going to also add that while we are in court, Tasha K and Cardi B should refrain from making statements about each other, and all statements should be coming from their attorneys. So that's a decorum order. Decorum order is when a judge just dictates how to proceed as far as how you behave, how you act, what you can and can't talk about. All right, so let me provide you guys now the link to the Unpoppin' show. All right, so you guys can check it out if you like. All right, so here is the link. Here we go. Yeah, so we talked about Bill Cosby. We talked about a woman whose ex-boyfriend was paying her bills for years on end and whether or not he had any legal recourse for that. Another interesting tidbit. Okay, so listen, you guys, it's 6:08. I'm actually going to hop out of here. I am going to end up changing this title. Can I change it now? I can change it now. We're going to change this title because, as you can see, we did not get to any of the other topics, but I will be back midweek, right? Wednesday, Thursday-ish. You guys will see my scheduled live pop up in your little notifications. Oh, while we're at it, if you are watching right now and you are not subscribed, what's going on? What's going on? I mean, you're here. And if you are subscribed, click the notification bell, right? So you get notified when I do the follow-up live later on this week, where we're going to discuss Richard Sherman getting arrested, right? That whole debacle. We're going to discuss Earn Your Leisure being accused of scamming. That whole debacle. We're going to discuss the ongoing debacle with Britney Spears and the ongoing Robert De Niro divorce, right? Oh, and we may throw in a conversation about DACA, because for those of you who don't know, DACA is potentially on the chopping block. And so Diva Divine Light says, can you come on my panel again? We need you, Miss Esquire. Of course. Just so we're very clear, the only reason I don't highlight and post some of Diva Divine Light's lives that I'm on is because I had a conversation with her where we discussed that, right? So we have our own agreement, okay? But Miss Diva, yes, I will come on your panel again anytime that you like. And if you would like me to start sharing that on the channel, I can. But I know you are so polite and wonderful. You guys, she's so sweet. And concerned about me having trolls over here. But if you ever decide that you want me to start sharing that, I will. Rev says, free Britney Spears. Well, we'll see. All right, you guys. So this has been another installment in A Real Lawyer Reacts here on Empowered Esquire TV. And you know, we talk about life lessons through a legal lens. So what have we learned today? If you don't want to pay for Pacer, you can go onto courtlistener.com, because listen, not everybody has the 10, 20 to 75 cents to just kind of toss away so they can browse a case, right? We've also learned that if you are a public figure, it will be harder for you to allege defamation, because by way of being a public figure, you are open to more public conversation and a higher level of public scrutiny. And third, we've also learned that my viewers here on Empowered Esquire TV are really some of the smartest folks out there. All right. So listen, it has been great. I hope you guys go on to have a wonderful and prosperous week, and I'll see you soon.